to The Truth in Us Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. Thank you for joining us for these conversations as we explore art, culture, and community connections. Today, we're joined by a Queens-based multimedia contemporary artist. Their recent work delves into identity and ancestry, deconstructing the human experience through expressive sculpted figures. His innovative use of light, sound, and cultural references highlight hyper-realized identities, creating a dynamic projection of attitude and lived experience. Recent projects like Sky's the Limit and the County of Kings fuse mixed materials into what he terms sustainable sonic sculpture. Please welcome the great Sherwin Banfield. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you on.
And I'm excited to just, have a conversation.
Yeah. And you can tell, like, I was looking at a video like not too long ago, and I was like, I like the way he introduces himself in this video. So I had to circle back on it. So
that
this was a video on YouTube or what have you. I'm blanking on. I can look it up real quick. Because it definitely, gave a little extra insight. Because you can read like descriptions and all of that stuff, but until you like hear it from the person, like how would they introduce themselves? I'm looking at this joint on Brick TV, and this was the Brooklyn Made piece.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I love that piece.
Yeah, so. In starting off, I like to, get sort of that introductory thing out of the way. Like usually it's, sort of what are those like early art or creativity experiences that, kind of set you on your path. So when you think of, early memories, it doesn't need to be like when you first started making your work, but one of those earlier moments where you're like, okay, I like this creative thing. What was something early in your childhood or maybe growing up that kind of set you on this path?
Well, I spoke about this a few times, but it's the truth. It's really just answers the question. And that pretty much memory is one of like sparring with art. It's like competition with art. And the person I'm sparring with is my brother, who's 2 years older than me. So when you have when you have a brother that's 2 years older, you're always looking to to challenge them to something. And the challenge was to draw a complete car, right? And and this was back on the island of Trinidad. We would sit out on our front porch, but we call it the gallery. And the road was just right next to the house. So there were only a few cars that were popular in Trinidad. So he had the Mazda and I had the Datsun. And when that car would drive past, we would, try to draw, a part of it until we have a complete drawing. Yeah. And the finished first would be the winner. So it was joy. It was camaraderie. It was building a relationship with art with my brother. So there was a lot of things in one that made that an anchoring memory for creativity.
Being a brother, I'm on the older side of it. I have a younger brother, and I noticed that competition thing that comes up, is shade more than anything else. It's like, you doing this podcast kind of whack. But then he's like my biggest fan at the same time. So, and then wanted to dive into the podcast space as well. So I see how you younger brothers operate. That's a really.
That's right. That's right. It's an opinion followed by an action.
So also I read, and I know I heard this in there a bit about you used to create your own toys back in the day in your childhood. Could you share a little bit more about that and like maybe how that also sort of informs maybe your artistic inclinations these days?
Yo, it's so wild you asked that question. So wild. I just had a conversation with my brother about that. And the reason I had a conversation with my brother about that. Actually, hold on one second. I'm actually going to show you the reason, right?
Yeah.
We got okay.
I see the car. Yeah.
All right. There's a, because of was it the background image that's virtual,
Yeah.
causing you to not see it completely. But this is a cardboard car
Yeah.
made by my 6-year-old daughter.
Oh,
And
wow.
when I picked her up from after school, she showed me that. She made that at after school. And I was floored because it took me right back to that young, impressionable, creative version of myself that was creating these cars out of cardboard,
Yeah.
right? And, Scotch tape. I think she has a little more contemporary materials. She has, stronger cardboard. The glue is more contemporary, but it's pretty much you get the same result, right? This idea of creating something three-dimensional with just objects that you put together to make this. And my brother and myself used to do that as well. So that conversation was just recent because this car just kind of came into my life via my daughter. So it was a direct reincarnation of what I used to do as a kid. And I'm like, wow, it's crazy. I'm floored.
I love that. That's really dope. I got in trouble for doing this, but you go to the department store back in the day and you have these little things like the little clips, you'd have like the little hair clips, you'd have the little like tags and things, those things that not the ones that are the sensors that you need a device to take off, but I used to collect those, right? And I would make my own little transformers out of them, like the old like school toy. I was trying to figure things. I wanted to be an engineer at one point.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's creative. Yeah.
So when I came across that, it definitely was like, okay, this dude gets it.
Yeah. Yeah. It partially came out of just not your parents not being able to afford something, but your hands and your imagination is able to compensate for that by making something that may not be as refined as the toy, but you're still making something that's that's comparable, and you find joy in that process.
Yeah, it's like when you have I watched a show on Netflix called The Toys That Made Us, and you'll see these different things. Like this was the mock-up, and you'll have like some guy who's probably some art dude that didn't go on to be like a professional artist. He ended up taking a job at this like toy company, and I remember specifically the one for like the He-Man toys, and they're talking about scale. And the dude's like, I don't care if it's not the scale. He's like, just put a saddle on it. And you got some guy sculpting that's probably has a background of sculpting that's making this toy that's not to scale and knowing it from artistically. But it's like, this is what I'm doing now.
Right. Wow. 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 Are you hearing this water?
No, I'm not.
Okay, good.
So I want to move a little bit towards, because I see Parsons, right? So I want to talk a bit about sort of that experience and, sort of any, impact that has like some, like I'll use this as an example. Like I went to a business school, right? I didn't go to an art school, I went to a business school. So I had very few opportunities to do anything radio related or creative related. It was just like, hey, you're going to, do the spreadsheet. So that's where, I get some of my, that knowledge from. But in those few instances where I was able to present or even able to be on the radio, that has a lasting impact. And that's probably 5% of the time I had in undergrad. So, you being an artist, you having the Parsons background. So tell me a bit about like sort of experiences or something that comes to mind that kind of shaped, again, where you're at now, sort of this trajectory, where you're at your career.
Wow. Well, Parsons, all I can say about, not all, but one of the things that stand out really is experiencing hip hop in the forefront in New York while I'm at art school. So it was this freedom of being outside of the box. And the box comprises of, your family life, your neighborhood, your friends, just everything that I grew up with, no longer being present. It's just me, this new school, this new city, well, not new completely, and just a new perspective. And, this music that I loved, it was I was free to just move around, do what I need to do, go to class, go to Tower Records, go to clubs, go to hip hop ciphers, and these just be present in hip hop in the '90s, and that was just a beautiful thing. It's the class was class. It kind of reminds me of Miles Davis. Miles Davis, when he left his hometown and he went up, he went to New York at Juilliard. He was really out there just experiencing the clubs and going to see who was playing and filling in for who he can. And the experience of the city, the nightlife, the culture. That's what really was, those years really was filled with that experience. And that's the same for me. Like I'm at Parsons, it's like Parsons like my day job, right? And I'm there, I'm doing it, I'm learning, I'm getting exposure to various forms of art. But in reality, the bigger part of it was just living on campus and just being in this new world and experiencing it. So Parsons was great. New York was greater.
It's a great answer. I feel like, the 5 New Yorkers that listen to this podcast, they're only going to listen to that part. And the funny thing is my partner's from Brooklyn, so she's going to be like, hell yeah.
Okay.
So in this vein, this is what I like to call a $2 segue, right? So in thinking outside of the box, in looking at some of these interviews and just some of the research I've done on your background, instincts come up, and allowing things to like unfold organically. Talk about that as it relates to your artistic practice and your process. Like, I have this inclination of when opportunities come my way to ride that wave, and going into a conversation, you never know what you're going to get and how it's going to go. So you just try to present yourself and let the conversation go where it goes. And that's why, as I said before we got started, it's like, it's just a conversation. So for you, instincts and in kind of like operating in an organic way, how does that relate to your artistic process and how you go about your work?
Well, this is my personal feeling and process. Hi, sweetie. I'm on the call, okay? Yes, very cute. My personal journey has really been about recognizing and just being present when, like you say, opportunities, when situations happen, that is an indication of moving forward in a free, open manner, right? Like you could be, I have people in my life who, live in the past and they can't get past a situation that has happened to them, whether it's in childhood or whether it's in, a current relationship recently. That's not how I operate. My art kind of takes its own journey and I'm kind of following the path as it's happening. So that's the organic aspect of it. It's almost as though it's just kind of holding my hand and just leading me, even though I'm participating and I'm driving the subconscious part of it. I guess what I'm saying is that just picks up on the opportunities and the windows of prospects and recognizing who is here to help, who's here to usher in the next phase of my work. All right. Yeah. The instinct is, okay, just make it and let it just let it happen, let it unfold as it should. All right. Not that I'm leaving all control to some higher power. It's just, no, you're actively participating in the journey by working, and through that, things will happen. Things will happen. And I guess the great example of that is when I was making the LL Cool J statue. I didn't have a place to work. I didn't have a location to show it. and I didn't have the funds to make it. What I did have that was in my control was my pencil, my hands, my imagination, and started drawing and actively participating in getting the idea out onto paper so that I can show it to someone on open call that came up. So basically it was just being open to knowing that the resources that I am in contact with, or that's in my circle via the internet, is just signing up for open calls. Like an open call would pop up for a studio space as I'm looking, and it's a competition. You have to be picked. I was picked along with others, and then opportunity to find a space in Flushing Meadow Park. That was an open call. I submitted the idea with the drawings. It was a selection of 2 artists. Of all the applications that was sent in, mine was selected, as well as another artist who happened to be my collaborator. I didn't know he was applying. So it's like, okay, so when you start seeing these things happening, you're like, all right, something else is working in your favor. Sure, there'll be negative things that pop up as well, but your mind is where the end result will end up.
Yeah, I like your mindset when in that regard. Like, well, overall, obviously, but I definitely like what you said there, because it's similar. Like, I've gotten pieces of advice of just like doing whatever you're doing, just work on your stuff. Like, because it's almost like when you get whatever that blessing is, right? Are you going to be ready for it? Are you actually doing the stuff? Do you have the idea? And too often, and the way to do the execution around that idea, but too often, we get caught on this notion of it is no funds there. There's no opportunity. Why would they pick me? Bah, 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 bah. But in the reality of it is, it's like, but are you doing it though? Because that's the thing that I try not to let really prevent me. Like, I'll have an idea. Like, when I say, look, I'm going to put out a bunch of podcasts with, just different creative people. Not everybody says yes. Not everybody is a good interview. Not every interview actually makes it to this. But, you set out with a plan and then you work towards that plan.
Yep.
It's a goal. And, when it comes to these opportunities, as you're touching on a bit, like I'm related to that as well, where, it's like, all right, I'm going to get this funded. I'm still going to do it though. I've had this thing where people will reject it because they're not getting the idea, or it's a little too fast for them, a little ahead of their perception. And then somehow 6 to 8 months later, they come back to me. But at that time, wait, don't really see it working, bro. It's like, well, I'm still going to do it though.
Yeah. Exactly. Because one person experience is not yours. You're not going to go up against the exact mirror obstacles that the other person is going to go up against, because you table a different set of ideas, and you bring yourself to the table, and people will respond to your energy, your work, which is your energy, and your belief. So and things happen to line up when they line up. What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you get 4 traffic lights all green? Just going to keep on going right through.
100%.
It happens maybe 2 or 3 times a day. I don't know. But if it's happening to me at that time, it's just happening to me at that time. That was the LL Cool J joint. It just happened the way it happened. And when it was put up, I happened to make the video. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make this video and I'm gonna post it.
Yeah.
Turns out when I installed it, it was finished right at the golden hour. Right? So the sun is going down, perfect for the backlighting on the inside, perfect for the dynamic range, if you know photography, for that to work in my favor for the best possible photograph and video. And those were the images that circulate on the internet. It's like, damn, it is what it was,
Yeah. And it's again, like, those things line up. And, it's, some people say serendipity and all of that stuff. I just look at it like you have something, you have it, and just things just lined up. But the key point is like, you have it, you have the idea, you have the sort of wherewithal, and you put yourself in a position to be able to do that, to have that synchronicity, if you will, kind of line up.
Yes. Yes. 100% yes.
So,
yeah.
So I think a lot of times we look back and we think about stuff that we've done. Like you had a little bit of that reincarnation moment, as you were describing earlier, thinking about, your card, and you see your child's card, you see your daughter's card, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. So when you look back at some of your earlier work compared to like sort of where you're at now as an artist, as a person, describe that feeling when you look back, because there's always sort of a touch tone where, you might have been doing like a piece and you're like, I remember this was what was going on in my life at this time. Or, now it's like, this is going on in my life. My perception is different. My mindset is different. My living situation is different. When you think back on an earlier work, talk about that feeling.
That's an interesting question. And the answer to that is, when I look back, I see the same person that I am today, in terms of skill and idea generation, right? Being able to generate ideas. The only difference is the resources, right? And the access. So the drawings that I did back in high school, it's all there. The ability to make it, the ability to craft it, and the ability to bring it to life, it's all there. The only thing that's different, which I guess you can consider it growth, is my exposure to other techniques, of other artists' techniques, and also exposure and practice of different materials, right? So this informs me that, I was nice back then, and I'm still nice. Just the core foundations is, I have the core foundations. Just a matter of what. It's like my mom, right? She just understands and knows how to cook. It's an understanding, right? She's connected in that way. It's just bringing in new ingredients to make other things. She knows how to make that. It's like the alchemy happens in the mind. Like, I'm able to make it in the mind. Just a matter of just understanding, what new material I'm working with. So yeah, so I look back on the work. The work is good. It's great, and I'm just thinking, man, that person that made that back then, me, if that person was in a different environment with different set of resources, that could have all generated something, impactful.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's what it is. It's like you grow up in an under-resourced neighborhood. You're nice, but you just don't. The people around you, it's not going to work because you don't have the surrounding. You don't have the team. You MJ, but you don't have the Bulls. You don't have. Yeah. But you're still nice. You can carry any team, but you still got to have a certain level around you.
See, I like this New York confidence. It's just amazing. I love the reference. I mean, it's there, and I feel that same sort of vibe. I say it, when I'm talking to people about this. I've been doing this for a long time, right? And when I talk to folks, and it's in that same vein, but I like the way that you said it because it sounds much more crisper. I'm gonna like really ape that and copy what you said, but it is this thing where it's like folks are like, wow, you get so much done. You're so good at this. And I was like, yeah, you should see me with a budget and a team.
Yeah.
And it's just like sort of the different resources and, being able to do all of this to the point that you were making. It's like, I already know I'm nice. I already know I'm good at it. And, having having those extra resources and having that access, like looking at the caliber of guests I'm able to reach out to, like a lot of times I don't know anybody. And, I would just reach out and then it's like, oh yeah, I heard of your work. I'm like, oh, wow. People know about me. Great. And then I'm able to have a conversation to satisfy, this curiosity that I have, one, and, put on a really cool conversation. That's really what comes out of it. And it's the same through line from when I started doing this.
Right. That's what's up.
So
yeah.
Obviously we talked a little bit about, and again, it makes a lot of sense, sort of your connections, your deep connection with hip hop. And, obviously 50th anniversary this year, as we're recording this, again, for those who didn't get it, in that initial, piece, talk about how it has had a, really big impact on your career. Cause I know that the sort of move into, from Trinidad to New York, and, that being a part of it, having the Parsons thing, but also being able to be out there within New York and, birthplace of hip hop and all of that good stuff. Talk about how maybe the culture, around hip hop has been influential for you.
I think it's a feeling, right? It's a feeling. It's music is a feeling, and it's organized chaos, and it's a recipe that either suits you or not. For me, hip hop really suited me, and for many others. And the culture that came with it is just infectious, and I really related to it. And I related to the creative aspect of it, the art aspect of it, the poetry. I marveled at the educational aspect of it, the ability to paint images with pictures. I mean, to paint pictures with words, right? And that's something that I do, but in a different medium, which is I paint, pictures with pencils and paints and all that good stuff. So hip hop really, the art form of it, the language of it, it's just infectious, man. The style of it, young Black kids, young people of color, just having an opinion, voicing themselves, and having fun. It's relatable. It's like the pure essence of expression. It's young people doing it. It's not old people. So that means a part of it is just instinctual.
Yeah.
Part soulful.
And a lot of times it has the DIY thing too, right? Where, when looking at just maybe documentaries and old works, you'll see we don't have a producer yet, going to sort of the roots of it. We don't have a producer, but we have a DJ. We got these records. We're going to make a song out of this.
Right. Yeah. You don't have the refined studio, but you still make something, I don't have, my daughter don't have, the Legos or the the materials they used to build, like the model, like you say, the He-Man, right?
Yeah.
The model of a car, but she made something out of cardboard, like I did. And you have this thing that brings more joy, and it's more relatable because folks are not going to be wearing, spaced out outfits like, the R&B singers of the 70s, but they will be wearing, Kangol's, jumpsuits, Adidas.
I was waiting for you to say Adidas.
And you see that image of them, you're like, oh man, that's me. That's someone representing me, and that's what the statues are supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be that image that represents you. Not some distant general that fought for a cause that you may or may not believe in, that you don't have no control over, but it's there in your face when you catch the train at the junction, or catch the train at the square.
Yeah. It's like that thing I know that's the thing that was going on social media and that holiday. It's like the only Christopher we acknowledge is Wallace. Let's just be honest. And, and when it comes to those statues and all, and which is another one of my $2 segues. Let's reflect a little bit on Sky's the Limit in the County of Kings. So it's about a year since the unveiling. If I have that correctly, could you elaborate on sort of the response that's been? And it's a tribute to Notorious B.I.G. And what are those reactions like? Sort of that feedback from maybe other artists and so on. Because one, I really dig it. I love it. I even love the like each piece of yours. I've seen this in this sculpture, and I'm just like, how does this get done? It's amazing. But tell me a little bit about that sort of with this year since, with having it out there.
Yeah, well, it's a feeling, man. The thing is, sculpture is not, I was saying this last night at a talk, an artist talk that I was invited to speak on. A sculpture is not something that is well known. It's not a discipline of art that has a curriculum built in for in the educational system. You may have pottery. I mean, that's I can't talk about that, sweetie. You may have pottery, and that's how you may get some version of sculpture reference. But sculpture is just something that not many folks have a reference as to how it's being made, right? But they know that it's there in their space, and there's a certain power to it. And the response to the sculpture has been more positive than negative, because it's so different and it's unlike what is out there. Yeah. Folks don't know how to respond to it, right? And that's the intention. The intention is you have a recognizable. Okay, let's put it like this. You're making this. You're making a song, but you're gonna put the drums in it that have a sample from another song, right? And I know that drums. I know that song. I know that drum sample. But you put all these different, let's say, Star Wars sounds on it, like these sounds that kind of make sense, but it don't. But you look at it, you can see a structure there. You can see the song has a layout, and that's what the sculpture is. There is a recognizable bust, traditionally sculpted on the top, right? But you look at this body, you don't understand what this body is, but it's a body. What is it? Is it armor? Is it something from the future? You know what I mean? I see a Coogee sweater, but is that really? How does it come together? But it makes sense in a way. It makes. That's the instincts. Your subconscious is telling you that it makes sense. Yeah. Why does it make sense? Because a human made it. That's why it makes sense. I
mean, when I look at it, I see a throne. And that's just my novice approach, but I see a throne, and it echoes the king sentiment.
Nice. Well, yeah, good. And I appreciate everyone's opinion, including the people who have something bad to say. It's still an opinion, and it's still valuable. So when it came on the scene, because it's a sculpture that is in Brooklyn, so it had key points, right? It's a sculpture that's in Brooklyn, near the Brooklyn Bridge, right? Yeah. See it, and there's a New York skyline that's there. So you're like, oh wow, that's incredible. Yeah. You may want to hate on it because it's not traditionally what you expect it to be, right? Yeah. But you can't, because the face is so well done. You can't hate on it completely. Completely, because it's so well done, and it's like when you look at an architecturally modern architectural building, you're like, wow, that's incredible. But you know what I mean? That's what it is. But it when the press got a hold of it, it went like wildfire. It went like wildfire. People responded to it in a huge way. It was highly popular. Folks wanted a piece of it. Everyone wanted to write about it. I've met, members of the family, of Biggie's family, as a result, and they've been really receptive to it. Members of Junior Mafia has been really receptive to it. So that's the thing, man. But it's still art. It's still sculpture art.
Yeah.
What do you do with art? What do you do with sculpture? Like, what do you do with it afterwards? Like, after the initial impression, like what? So that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's what
So thank you. Wow. That's, that adds so much more texture to it. So I got one last real question, and then I got a few rapid fire questions that I got to ask you. So here's the sort of last one, and I want to frame this in a way, because I think I have a sense on what your answer might be, because you're nice with it. But how do you stay motivated and you can overcome these like creative dry spells? Like, I've heard everyone from like someone that's emerging to someone that's like deep in their career of trying to find ways to cope with those moments where it's like, I'm a little discouraged, or I don't know, what have you. Am I still good? Whatever that thing might be. How do you kind of like cope with it? Or do you even experience that?
Don't experience any of that. No dry spells. Zero. I think the best way to answer that is, I think folks might get the definition of art maybe a little backwards, right? Art is the process. The art is dreaming and then manifesting. And that manifesting involves a ton of problem solving, right? It involves different types of execution. I just happen to be in a world, in a discipline, I should say, where there's no room to be bored. So many aspects of it that allows it to come to, that you have to go through to bring it to life. There is the sculpting aspect of it. Like I'm actually sculpting out of clay. I'm getting the photo reference. I'm hoping to get the right photo reference. That's part of it. When I find that reference, I'm like, all right, I won this particular, this journey, right? Well, not journey, but this battle. Won this battle.
Yeah.
There's so many. There's the drawing aspects, the making the measurements, the contacting fabricators, the contacting of the bronze foundry, if they can make it. It's getting the materials. It's getting the engineer to make the solar system work. It's making sure the measurements all fit and it comes together like a Boeing 727. That's part of it. And when it's you put it out there, you're like, all right, let's wait and see what people say.
Yeah.
It's a 2-year journey to make that. A 2-year journey. So, I didn't design it on the computer and press print. I designed it in my head. I used the computer as an aid. Not to say that that's any, not to have an opinion on that. I'm just saying my process involves the traditional sculpting way of making it in clay, making a mold, casting it, making an actual copy of it, and sending it to the foundry, having that relationship, meeting other artists at the foundry, and then sculpting the hands, making the Kuji sweater out of resin, coming up with an idea how to make it, seeing it actual work, You know,
Yeah.
there's a risk. There's a risk in placing the CD inside of it and making sure there's no bubbles. There were bubbles, so I'm like, all right, well, it still looks all right. So my hands are in every aspect of it.
Yeah.
So that's the journey. That's the art. The art is the process of making it. How can I be bored doing that? Then I have a family. I gotta, when the family sets me free to go work, I'm like, okay, I have this amount of time to work. Let's make the most of it. So I don't really have time to get bored, man. I got someone behind me trying to get my attention.
That's great. That's a great answer. And thank you for that. I think it's one for a lot of folks to really, really think through. Like, there's things within doing this that aren't particularly great. Like, I don't like the admin stuff. I like this part of it. The actual, like, the execution. You're having a conversation. You're sculpting a conversation as we go along, and you get to learn from a person. You get to interact and have fellowship with them, and all of that. That's the part that's really cool. And I'm always busy, so the notion of getting discouraged, it doesn't happen a lot, but it's parts of it that feel kind of weird. But the way that you were describing it, I like that energy a bit more of like, there's so many things I have within this. I don't get discouraged, and having this sort of fount of creativity and skill that's sitting there, that you're always trying to like figure things out. You don't have time. You don't have time to get discouraged.
That's right. Don't have time to get discouraged. I really don't.
So let me hit you with these last few rapid fire questions. And as I tell everybody, don't overthink these. These are like, look, I said what I said. Brevity is key here. All right. So here's the first one. Do you prefer to start your day off with tea or coffee?
Tea.
Now, you mentioned earlier about your mom throwing down in the kitchen. What is your favorite meal?
That would be traditional Sunday food, traditional Trinidadian Sunday food.
Okay. Now I got to ask this one because, hip hop. I was going to say top 5. I'll go top 3 because I think, that's a little, people get like, I don't know who's on my Mount Rushmore. Who are your top 3 artists
of all time? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Top 3 of all time. Now this is hip hop artists.
Yeah.
Okay. This is art. Which is like lyrics and music, like sounds and melodies and feeling.
Yeah.
Kanye. Okay. Pharrell. A Gangstar.
Okay. It's good. This is the last one. In 3 words, they don't have to be a sentence or anything, but in 3 words, what do you enjoy about being an artist, or why do you enjoy being an artist?
Just quote 3 different words?
Yeah, just 3 different words.
Freedom, joy, and inspiration.
Thank you. That's great. Wonderful. And I'm glad we were able to get this. One, I want to thank you for coming on to this podcast and spending some time with me to think back about, your career and your work. And in these final moments, I want to give you the space to let folks know where to check you out, check out your work, social media, website, all of that good stuff. The floor is yours.
Okay. I go by Sherwin the Artist. You can find that on Instagram, Sherwin the Artist. You can also find me, sherwinbanfield.com. Basically on Instagram, I have a link tree, and the link tree gives you, portals into different aspects of me. And that's where you can learn the most about my work.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank the great Sherwin Banfield for coming on to the podcast and sharing a bit of his journey with us. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, and community in and around your neck of the woods. You've just got to look for it.